Hi, and welcome to another MovieBoozer.com virtual pubcast. And I'm Ken Ekman, and I'm joined by Hawk Ripchaw
Hi.
and Bill Leon.
Hello.
And somewhere is Hawk Ripchaw's enthusiasm, but I'm not sure where it went. That joke kind of
Hey
came
guys! I'm so excited to be here on the
Just
movie.
just impersonate Stephen Amell doing Casey Jones.
I haven't seen that movie yet, so I can't do that.
Yeah, so this was a bit of a rocky start. We'll go ahead and just move along to the fact that we've got movies to talk about this week. And as far as that, the movies we've seen this weekend include Warcraft, The Conjuring 2, and did anyone see Now You See Me 2?
I didn't see the first one, so
That movie doesn't fucking tell me what and what I cannot see, so no.
Wait, what?
it's called Now You See Me, like See Me Now. The movie, it's like giving you a demand.
Oh,
That movie's not the boss of me.
Well, you know what? So just for that, all I can say is
Jesus Christ! Should we just restart the whole thing? Let's not. Keep going. We're doing it live.
Now you don't.
I don't get it.
I was
Wow.
going for a joke, and then Hawks stamped all over it. So, yeah, this is this is live recording, people.
We need to find our groove here.
Find our center. So, with that said, the movies we have to discuss this week are The Conjuring 2 and Warcraft, and I don't think Bill Arsenault saw Now You See Me 2, so I'm going to assume none of us did, and that's for the best.
I should
Yes.
mention though that I had the intention of seeing Now You See Me because I am still a defender of that movie. I think it's dumb as hell, but it definitely knows how dumb it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's dumb as hell and trying to fool people into thinking it's intelligent.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, let's get into this really quick. Now You See Me, I know that you're a defender of it. Let me just state my thoughts on it here. When I saw the movie in theaters, I was going in looking for nothing more than just sort of the way it was advertised, sort of a heist thriller with magic. Some sleight of hand thrown in there, sort of an Ocean's 11 kind of style of a group of people pulling the wool over the eyes of some major characters. And they tried to do that, but some of the things they did is, first of all, every instance of magic being shown, there was a great deal of, rather than sleight of hand, they used a lot of trickery via computer effects, which I think dumbs down the magic element of it. But on top of that, you have characters who are not really very well explored. Woody Harrelson, tries to be, the quirky, funny old guy, and they don't give him much to do beyond that. It's a very base kind of A-type character.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Jesse Eisenberg is, Jesse Eisenberg, manic, and
Was Dave Franco in the first one?
Yes, he was.
Oh. Okay.
And Dave Franco is as Dave Franco, of course, as he usually is.
Sure. I mean, the movie is not without problems. I mean, it's definitely not a fantastic movie, but it's very lightweight and just fun and silly, and I still think that I would love to I would love to watch it again, knowing what it is, and I would be interested if you would do the same thing to see if you thought the same of it, because it's just I still think that it definitely knew how dumb it was, because nobody's going to set up a trick in a movie where he predicts a number on a card and it shows up on the building and say, oh, that could really happen. I mean, all these special effects magic tricks are all about the movie being as dumb as possible.
I think the problem is with that, the movie also makes the assertion that magic is real, and then there's this cabal a secret cabal of people who actually have the ability to perform real magic, and that
God forbid that a movie has something that's not actual.
right. Well, it pulls that shit at the end after establishing a world where I thought they were building up to. Oh, there's going to be like a legitimate explanation for all of this. They're going to have something revealed that's going to be like, ooh, this is how they did this, and this is how they did this. No, no, this is all magic, because magic's real. It is, totally.
If that's, yeah, I haven't seen this, so I don't know how that's presented in the film, but it sounds like a cop-out.
Even The
No,
Prestige, which featured a friggin' duplication machine that could create a new person, even that at least had somewhat of a scientific explanation because the device was created by a scientist, so at least that's something. This didn't have that.
I don't think that's really ground to stand on. I love The Prestige, but that explanation was basically, hey, here's David Bowie as Tesla, and he's going to say science 5 times in one monologue, and then that's it.
And then bounce.
And then bounce.
Well, to be fair, he came back into the movie a couple different times. And also, he is David fucking Bowie, so he earns some extra bonus points for that. I agree with you. It's not the most sterling of premises, and I guess I have the argument that that magic should stand on its own. There should be some if you're going to present magic as an art form, you need to use magic to display it. There's plenty of performers out there capable of creating things that could have made this movie really interesting and steeped it in kind of interest. Even with a little bit of fantasy bending here and there. For instance, okay, one of the characters in Now You See Me is an expert at throwing cards really fast, and that's a legitimate thing. There are people out there. There's actually a very famous person out there who is able to throw playing cards so hard they will embed in a watermelon.
You talking about the Stanley Superhumans guy?
I haven't seen Stanley Superhumans. I just know him as the guy from Deadwood. He's a character actor who I forget his name, but his talent is like he's like a world famous card thrower. He knows exactly how to throw a card so that it does that. And instead of doing that, there's plainly, obviously CGI card throwing in the movie. That's just so why not get someone who actually has that talent, or shows the actor how to do it instead of let's just computer that away and move on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure Dave Franco actually possesses that skill, and they only had the CGI in that for just the right shot, like coming at the camera or something.
All right. Well, if he actually possesses the skill, then I will concede my point in that respect, assuming he does.
But
I
look,
would like to see that happen.
I totally agree with everything you're saying about this movie, but that's kind of what made it fun for me. Like this is a popcorn movie at the absolute textbook definition.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
and
that's
the plot twist was really fucking stupid because the twist was blatantly the absolute last thing that would not only be unexpected but even possible in the movie. Like it's one of those bad plot twists where nothing that comes before it in the movie really kind of slots into the explanation.
right.
But again,
exactly.
that's what I kind of enjoyed about it. It's just dumb. It's really entertaining.
The plot twist also hurt it for me, especially considering what it made me do is it made me root for the person who the film is trying to set up as the villain, because the movie tries to set up that Morgan Freeman in the movie is kind of this villainous person, but the way he gets taken down and the reasons why he's set up as a villain is because he has the temerity to try to disprove magic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because magic is totally real, and so that makes him a bad guy who needs to be thrown in jail for life. Okay, well,
that's not really the direction that logic goes. But doesn't he go into prison because he was responsible for the death of a couple people?
No, he goes to prison because they. I don't. First of all, as far as the deaths of people, that's something that's not established in the film at all. And second, that he goes to prison because they frame him for robbery.
Oh
And
yeah, that's right.
and they frame him in a way that no human being in their right mind would blame him for it. They like all of a sudden his car explodes with money, and it's like yes, because the person who robbed a bank is going to plant a bomb in his car to explode money all over the place. To be like, oh, I'm sorry, I robbed the bank and now it's all over here. You know.
But again, it's all just silly.
Yeah, exactly. It's silly, but it's silly to the point where it's no longer interesting. Silly. It's just plain. There. Okay.
Kind of like,
There's a line that can be crossed in movies where a movie goes from silly entertaining, which would be what I'm pointing to back here. Anything on my wall here behind me is silly entertaining. When you cross that line, though, from silly entertaining into just plain dumb, it no longer is interesting.
Hell Comes to Frogtown is pretty dumb.
I was gonna call you on that one too. Like that one, I would argue that one also crosses the line, but in a fun way. Like
Yeah.
to me, either side of the line is still a different type of fun. Where Now You See Me is like like I cannot fathom somebody sitting down and writing the script and in any way, shape, or form being like, yeah, this is really compelling drama. No, whoever wrote that script, they're like, this is fucking stupid, and I love it.
You know what? You're right to an extent in that if something goes so dumb that it transcends stupidity and makes a complete 180 into just a failure of epic proportions, but that's not Now You See Me. Hell Comes to Frogtown is certainly that.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly that. Now You See Me, though, is at least somewhat competently made of a film.
Sure.
And,
I mean, Louis Leterrier is a really good director.
right. I'm not gonna shoot that down. The film is at least it works as a straightforward film. It's made competently. I will say that.
Mm-hmm.
Just not particularly all that. It's the kind of uninteresting film that makes me want to move on to another subject, which is the movies of this week.
What's Now You See Me 2 about, though?
So apparently, like the Four Horsemen, with now Isla Fisher replaced by, what the girl that looks like Kat Dennings.
Oh, okay.
What's her name? Fuck. No, it's
You got me.
Lizzie Kaplan.
Oh, she doesn't look like Kat Dennings.
Yeah, they do. They totally look alike.
No.
Yeah, I don't look it up side by side, my friend. There's the totally
Doing
look
that
alike.
right now. Lizzie Kaplan and
Kat Dennings.
Kat Dennings. All right, we're gonna resolve this. So
We're gonna fuck.
yeah, we're gonna fuck. All right, so
While you're looking at that, I was gonna say I really want to point out too, really quick before I get back into the plot of Now You See Me Too, is that I love The Prestige, and I also thought The Illusionist was stupid. So.
I never saw The
That's
Illusionist actually.
Yeah, that's the Ed Norton movie.
Yeah, the one that came out in the same. That was like one of the first years of like two similar movies coming out. The first times where everybody was like, there were two different camps. It was like the people that loved The Prestige and didn't like The Illusionist, and the ones that loved The Illusionist and didn't like The Prestige. There seemed to be no middle ground. But The Illusionist hinges almost entirely on like, what's going to be the big twist? Oh, there's a big twist coming, guys. This movie had a twist in it. Go see it right now, the twist. But really, you could kind of call the twist about halfway through the movie, and the movie's old, so I don't care about spoiling it. The female lead gets killed halfway through the movie, or she dies or whatever, and then at the end it's revealed that she's alive. Because Ed Norton like faked her death to get her away from Paul Giamatti's character, so that they could live happily ever after or something. But any asshole who looks at the cover of the movie and sees that the girl from Lost is second billing knows that she doesn't die half an hour into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, I've got the comparisons. So here we have Lizzie Kaplan. All right, Lizzie Kaplan, ladies and gentlemen. Take it in, drink it in. And here we have Kat Dennings.
Yeah, I know who Lizzie Kaplan is. She was on Party Down.
Lizzie Kaplan, Kat Dennings.
Yeah, they kind of look alike.
I don't think so.
I can see how you could confuse the two potentially.
Brown-haired white women.
I won't say that they're dead ringers for each other, but I can see how you could confuse the two with the right makeup job, the right photographer, the right role, the right hairdo. It's potential. It's sort of like how in Star Wars: The Phantom Menace you have you have a very young Natalie Portman, and backing her up as her supposed to be her look-alike was a very young. Now I'm brain farting on her name. God damn it.
Keira Knightley?
Keira Knightley, you got it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
actually
they
Sophia
look
Coppola
alike.
also.
Yeah.
Keira Knightley and Natalie Portman definitely look alike.
Yeah. Well, and I would say they look alike enough that you could, with the right makeup job, make it work. But it's not a dead ringer situation.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that being said, we're going to move on to another movie subject, which is we're going to start with Warcraft here.
We shouldn't wait for Bill?
More like war crap, am I right?
I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go far enough to call it crap. I
No.
feel very little emotionally about this film.
No, I agree. Honestly, and I can say this because I know Bill A. felt similarly about the movie. This movie is a fucking mess, but I can't remember the last time I was genuinely entertained by a movie that was this problematic.
I don't remember being entertained at all during this movie. So we're at least on some page. I don't know if it's the right one, but
I know there were some things that I was entertained by. I definitely agree that it has shades of those direct-to-DVD Dungeons and Dragons movies, especially with the comic relief.
It's exactly like those movies in that if you are unfamiliar with the source material, it's going to sound like people speaking a completely different language to you.
I don't know about that. I felt like some of it was they tried to make it kind of accessible.
Well, let me first ask, what is your familiarity with Warcraft, Chris? Hawk?
I know that it's a game.
Right. There's Warcraft, and then World of Warcraft, and then expansions for World of Warcraft.
How much do you know about the mythos at all, if any?
There's pandas.
I talked about that last week.
I was so disappointed that there wasn't a panda in this movie.
Yeah, that's a different part of Azeroth.
Yeah. No.
I don't really know jack about World of Warcraft at all. At all.
So I went in just expecting. I knew that orcs and humans were in it, and I said, "All right, so there's going to be something somewhat Tolkien about the universe, perhaps, and that it's going to be swords and sorcery, and which I typically, I can get enjoyment out of that. There's plenty of films with that topic that I enjoy, and I'm a big fan of Game of Thrones, which is of course kind of a twist on that genre." Less focused on the hero's journey, but still, this is, I enjoyed most of the Lord of the Rings films, so I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot, and then...
One thing I will say about Warcraft is that it's better than The Hobbit Part 3.
Yes, I will say that much. I will give you that.
I'm glad that I got you to say that. Of course, everybody knows that The Hobbit 3 was a fucking dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Like, the scene where Legolas is jumping on the falling rocks is, like, one of the worst things I've ever seen in a big-budget movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's when the Hobbit films crossed over completely into video game territory, and they could be accused of it numerous times in the past. But that was when they just went straight up, no, this is a video game, period. And Warcraft does that quite a bit as well, though. But it's less it's less afraid of that. And in fact, I would argue it does. The reason why I would put it above the third Hobbit is it at least owns that a little bit. and says, we are based on a video game, so we're going to be a video game. We're going to have gigantic orcs with hammers that squash people, and we're going to have sorcerers with magic that looks all colorful and cartoonish, and
Duncan Jones has been very candid about the influences and the reference to video games in the movie, like even to the point where when what's his face sucks all the evil magic out of the thing and blows it up, and then he shoots out the yellow magic in a beam of shit vertically out of his eyes and something.
That's a very apt description of this plot.
It's like he sucks at the evil magic and he like this column of golden light shoots out of him straight up, and Duncan Jones is like, yeah, that was the part where he levels up. So obviously Duncan Jones is a nerd, but
right. And I have I don't have problems with the fact that the movie is meant to be paying tribute to its video game, and in fact the slavish nature with which it seems to follow the lore of it is fine, and in fact, not understanding the references, I will completely own the fact that if there's someone out there who's a huge WoW fan and like watches this and just thinks that it's the most amazing thing ever, okay, that's fine. But when you introduce the movie, the first movie that is supposed to be the Warcraft movie in theaters, and first of all, a ton of promotion went into pounding in the fact that, you don't have to have played the games to get this, which is absolutely not true, because I found myself stumbling through references, trying to figure out what the fuck was going on at any given time, and most of it had to do with the humans plot. The orcs have a simple enough existence that I could figure out their motives, like, right away. Their motives are, we're warlike and we want to destroy things and we want to own our land that we're on. Cool. I got that. The humans, though, there were a lot of complex overlaying motives behind these characters that are not established at all. And there's a huge backstory behind it that's not explored, and you can't explore in a 2-hour movie. This would have probably been a much better experience if they spanned it into maybe a 10-episode miniseries or something.
Well, they're probably hoping for a 10-movie franchise.
Which would be interesting, except that they put 10 movies of backstory in one film. So I imagine every film following this is going to be just as impenetrable to me. So I have no motivation to watch another.
I was okay with the level, with like, it was convoluted, definitely, and messy. I didn't know what was going on. That didn't bug me a whole lot because I knew that any fan of Warcraft would be eating this up. And I also got to admire the ambition with the level of world building they went for. The problem is that this movie was probably about 40 minutes longer than its original cut. And it is very obvious they cut this thing down because scenes start and end in weird places. The editing is just strange. It's not, maybe not Batman v Superman bad, but it's just the way it just seems very just sliced and diced.
It feels that way. Either that or they just had a bloated script and they didn't know where to fit everything in. The mere fact that Duncan Jones allegedly looked at the original screenplay and said, this isn't going to work, I have to rewrite it, tells me that he clearly put some thought into this. And so you're right. I would actually err on the side of caution and say that there's probably a longer, more coherent film somewhere.
Oh, no, there is. Like, Duncan Jones has said it. He said, we cut out a lot of stuff, and you will see an extended cut later on.
And I'd be willing to at least give that a try. Now, that's not going to help the fact that the characters we have in this are just completely uninteresting people. I don't think there was anything humorous. I mean, the humor that they tried to inject into this film was dull at best. It was actually, and here I'm going to say this is not a unique problem. Lord of the Rings has the same problem. Gimli and you mentioned him earlier, bow and arrow guy.
Legolas.
Legolas.
Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, Orlando Bloom. they barely even hint at their characters in the Lord of the Rings movies, and they're basically just there throughout them. Only in the second film do you ever see those characters interact with any kind of humor or character. In the first and third one, they're basically just set dressing.
There's a very curious feel to humor in fantasy films. It all has the same flavor, and it's always really strange.
Mm-hmm. That's the reason why, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I promise this is the last time I'm going to directly reference Game of Thrones. The reason why Game of Thrones works is it takes that fantasy world and the backdrop that it's within, and it throws out the need to slavishly follow these characters as they go upon an epic journey of heroism, and instead it follows human beings as they're petty assholes to each other.
That and my mom jokes wouldn't work in Game of Thrones.
Oh, yeah. Because of the incest of...
Hashtag incest.
There are plenty of mothers not born of... or children not born of incest within Game of Thrones. So.
Yeah, I mean, we'll go... Warcraft had that same weird humor that every fantasy film does. I can't place it, but it all has the same flavor. Warcraft.
It's all built on machismo. It's the thing of, well, like in Lord of the Rings, you have Gimli and Legolas bragging about how I killed the most, and I killed the most, or you need to throw me because I'm gonna go do badass things.
Yeah,
and I think it's very archaic nowadays, especially now that the whole concept of machismo is being kind of thrown against the wall and being pointed out for what it is, as being pretty base and profane.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Bill, Leon, you've seen this movie and you haven't said much.
Oh, I was sitting there just fighting to keep focus on the screen. Like, this thing was a fucking chore to watch. There was no character I gave even the mildest of shits about. It's just too much. I don't know. Like, and it looks really good. Like, the CG artist did a great job. There were some special effects. Like, did you notice that the chick's teeth kind of look weird?
Her teeth looked like, I swear through the whole thing, I was just thinking, did they just give her some plastic vampire teeth?
What's that?
Yeah, that was totally just straight up vampire teeth. I didn't see anything, and in fact, the whole thing of having the half-breed character to me kind of cheapens it cheapens the aspect of humans and orcs collaborating by saying, well, yeah, but there's got to be an orc you want to fuck.
One will unite them!
Yeah, and then at the end, it was like, they tried to do this strong female character thing, and I'm like, she's boring. Like, who gives a shit?
Actually, I kind of liked what they did at the ending. I didn't see it going that direction. It's like, oh, now she kills Dominic Cooper, and she's joining the orcs, and she's sad. Actually, everybody's sad. Like, a lot of spoilers, I guess, whatever. A lot of like sad things happen in this movie. Like, the king dies, and then the mom dies, giving birth to the son, and the son dies later on, and then the orc dies, and then his wife dies, and then the baby probably dies too.
Probably.
So, but it's just like everybody's just sad all the time. Except for the guy that played the knight, he looked like he was always having fun when his eyes weren't watering. And then there's the the mage dies. I was kind of hoping for something more interesting than, the Guardian is secretly the bad guy.
Yeah, here's the thing. From the moment he stepped into the film, I was like, bad guy.
When they suggested that he was maybe the one behind it all, I was like, Duncan Jones has got to have a little more nuance than that. But no, he's bad.
Yeah,
I did like Ben Foster's performance though. He was pretty good.
I didn't notice anybody's performance in this.
Yeah.
Nothing stuck out to me in this film at all. Like, I'm sitting here struggling to even remember things to talk about. Like, it just came and went.
I thought
It
the production design was fantastic.
it's a really beautiful looking film. I think certain designs are too close to the games to where they don't look right, like the dwarves.
Yeah, the dwarves and then like I know I guess I looked at some cover art for the games and man they fucking nailed those elves, but man it looks weird in the movie with their long eyebrows.
Hmm.
Like that's not real. That's a fucking drawing on a video game cover.
And I was telling this to Bill before we started recording today, is that the design of the creatures, like the orcs and the dwarves, works really well in the area of a video game because, especially in World of Warcraft, you see them from a very long distance away, and so they have to have these big, exaggerated features so you can tell them apart. And it's sort of the difference between a performance that an actor would deliver in a theater versus on film. They have to be different because in one case you have to project, and in one case it's a much more intimate setting. And by having having the designs of these creatures being as huge as they were, it comes off a little bit more cartoonish, and the same thing with the dwarves. The way they feel designed, it just seems so baldly stereotypical of some sort of a creature design that it doesn't feel as honest on film as it might in a video game when there's more of a distance between.
They even run like the dwarves in the video games, which is like there's just little parts where I'm like, this does not look right in a film. Like,
it kind of reminds me of Ratchet and Clank, where they actually literally used the same for creating the video.
Have you ever seen any of Blizzard's animations?
Oh yeah, they're fantastic.
They look better than this film does.
I haven't.
I don't know about that.
I can't say that I have seen that.
Absolutely. No, they are fucking gorgeous. They're like, and everybody wants Blizzard Animation to make a movie, and now apparently it's a little too much work for them.
Well, they might, and it's going to turn out like Final Fantasy Advent Children.
So hold on, maybe we've run into a situation like my complaint about Angry Birds, the movie, where they should have just taken the animation that they used from the Angry Birds animated show that they already had, made a movie out of that, as opposed to, oh wow, we've kind of come full circle.
I definitely think Blizzard's animation team should have done this, but at the same time, like this.
Is the animation itself better, or is it that they just know their characters and the way they should be portrayed on screen better? Bill?
What'd you say?
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out there. I was saying, is it that the animation quality is better for those films that you're talking about, or is it that the animators for it, since they're involved in the game, understand how those characters should be portrayed better?
Both, but they're usually really short and light on dialogue.
Oh, I see. Okay, and that's another thing. They could have done an approach like that where they limited the dialogue, and that would have been interesting. Would have avoided.
Anytime they like stopped for a conversation, my fucking brain
it tunes right out, and that's the thing about fantasy is when you delve so heavily into that dialogue of setting the backstory, you run the risk of over exposition, and hence why you have some more successful fantasy series running on television, because what they can do is they can set up characters to be humans first, or whatever creature they are, to display realistic traits first, and then as they're having a conversation about things that their day-to-day lives would require, a discussion of, you can move some elements of lore into that and introduce it more subtly, because you have more time to do it for that development to take place.
And more build up to a bigger climax, or maybe not a bigger climax, but just any climax, because.
Yeah, the climax of this film felt very anticlimactic. It felt like
Yeah.
we ran out of money, so we're gonna just we'll clean this up in the sequel.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like it was getting it felt like it was getting closer to the end and building towards something that probably wasn't going to come.
And because of the open-ended way it ends, it ends up feeling like it feels like they made The Empire Strikes Back without ever making Star Wars.
Yeah, kind of.
And The Empire Strikes Back, don't get me wrong, I think overall the best movie in the franchise, but without Star Wars existing, it doesn't make a whole goddamn lot of sense because it's a continuing story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really disappointed by the death of fucking whatever his name was, the giant orc with the bones on his shoulders and...
Oh,
Door something? Doramir?
No, Stonefist? Wait,
Stonefist.
left-handed?
I don't know.
Drain.
Fucking whatever his name was that killed the
Drain.
main guy's son.
I can tell he left a big impact.
Oh,
on
wait. Oh, here is Orgrim Doomhammer. That's got to be.
Doomhammer. Yeah, oh, whatever. Who cares? He killed the main guy's son, which I thought was a pretty good scene. And the revenge, and you guys all know how I love a little bit of revenge, was so bland. It was like the part in Troy with Brad Pitt where they'd run at each other, or any like samurai movie where like they run at each other and they're about to fight, and then like, what? Nope, he's dead. One hit.
It's like if you're playing Mortal Kombat with a friend and they refuse to do a fatality. It's just always the friendship.
Yeah.
Friendship again?
But it's that was the thing that bugged me the most. I was like, oh man. And there were a lot of parts where I thought it was just gonna end. I was like, if they fucking end this movie as the two of them are looking at each other and about to fight, I'm going to scream. But they didn't. They just ended it with the fucking New Hope ending with everybody cheering and doing shit. But
yeah, and I think Warcraft as a movie could have worked. I just think, and in fact, if you are really steeped in Warcraft as a video game, maybe you enjoy this movie a lot more than I did, possibly. But it's got some inherent flaws in it as a narrative, and it does not work very well as an introductory piece for someone who's uninitiated. I have, from time to time, people who've been big fans of Warcraft have said, you'd probably really like Warcraft, maybe even the earlier games, because you like real-time strategy, and those early games were real-time strategy games. I'm like, okay, that sounds cool.
I will openly admit, openly own the fact that I think I was jaded by my love for Duncan Jones. I think he's a terrific director. I thought Moon was very good. I thought Source Code was a blast. And I think I really wanted to love this. And to be honest, the first act, I was really drawn in. I thought it was entertaining. It was kind of fun. It was really not interesting. It was really inventive. I would stop just short of saying it was compelling.
Right.
But it's, around half through the second act, started to lose me, and then by the third act, I was starting to get a little bored.
Mm-hmm.
So, for the most part, the movie entertained me, but it really kind of went downhill towards the end, and then, like you said, Ken, the last 20 minutes are just rushed. This movie has no sense of pacing at all.
Right. And who knows, maybe the extended version fixes that up a little bit, but I
hope it does, because...
my breath.
But Ken, you haven't seen a Duncan Jones movie yet, have you?
I haven't. I actually, I was going to watch them before this, but then I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in reverse order. And so, actually, sometime in the next couple days, I'm going to watch Source Code, and then I'll watch Moon after that.
So, Source Code is bonkers, but it's really, but in a good way.
I know.
It's one of those...
Yeah, I know the concepts of both films, and so I'm very much interested to see them. And with Moon in particular, because I'm a huge Sam Rockwell fan. And
Moon.
The movie is literally all Sam Rockwell's thing, as far as I understand.
Absolutely.
So, Chris,
Moon is an A class. What?
Would you recommend Warcraft?
No.
Ken, would you recommend Warcraft?
If you are a devoted fan of World of Warcraft, maybe take a look at it and then report back to me and tell me if it works for you. Other than
I was on Reddit, and looking. I always like to go on after I've seen a movie, go into the official discussions on Reddit and see what they said. And almost across the board, Warcraft fans are eating this movie up. They love it.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some
Because
Warcraft
they're
fans
catching all the
did.
lore references. There are a few, but like from what I saw, at least the higher up comments, they really enjoyed the references and the attempt at making the lore work in a movie. A lot of them said that the characters didn't really work that well, especially the ones that were kind of steeped more in the storyline of the game, that just kind of translated poorly to the actual hero. Speaking of characters, two things. The main orc guy, I did not expect him to die. I thought that was kind of an interesting and daring choice to just kill him off. Because to me, he was the primary protagonist.
That stinger was so lame.
What stinger?
The stinger with the baby.
Oh, I mean, whatever. It's apparently the baby grows up to be one of the main characters of Warcraft, but I don't know.
Ooh.
I haven't played the games.
They gave him a Holy Moses situation, the bassinet floating in the river.
No, it's cross-pollination with the next Trolls movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. They got to make a new Trolls sequel, so maybe that'll be it.
And the bad guy. I thought the bad guy was the most interesting part of the movie.
Wait, what if Troll 2 and Warcraft are set in the same universe?
They are. I can tell you right now, they fucking are.
Yeah.
Is there a Nilbog in Azeroth?
I don't know what those mean.
Azeroth is Nilbog.
Oh no.
But
Okay.
thousands of years later, of course.
I really enjoyed the bad guy. He was fucking evil. Like, I'm all about like a good villain, and he wasn't like the best villain, but Daniel Wu, I think, was the guy that portrayed him. He did a good job, and he was fucking evil. Like the part where he was like just sucking out pieces of that dude's soul a la carte. I was like, I hate this guy. He's just mean.
I didn't notice any performances in this film.
The design of it's interesting. The design of the bad guy kind of reminds me of the depiction of the evil Captain LeChuck in Monkey Island in one of the later episodes when he's come back as like a demon and his eyes are glowing and shit.
That should be the third one, Curse of Monkey Island.
Yeah, it's totally undead LeChuck.
I thought he was cool though. Like, I mean, he was evil. You hated him because he's an asshole to everybody. The part, like I said this on the chat, but I kind of laughed at if the movie had gone for this level of intensity and everything, then I would have loved it. Like, he's like, my magic is powered by souls, and then he's like, Rah! And then all the people are like, Rah! And it's like just rips out about 1 billion souls all at once, and then he turns the portal on and
they didn't really
like that was a cool fucking scene.
Did they ever actually establish what happens to the people when they're fed into the machine? That powers his like Stargate thing.
He sucks their souls out and they die.
Okay.
I assume.
Where was the pile of bodies of soulless bodies lying?
They actually showed that there was a shot inside a couple of the cages of the lifeless bodies.
Oh, man.
Why couldn't they use Bubba Hotep rules?
Use the what?
Bubba Hotep rules. He has to suck the soul out of the asshole.
Oh. That would have been amazing. Especially if he had to wear cowboy duds while doing it. Yeah. So, long story short, we've been... Yeah.
How many beers would we give this movie?
You want my opinion? I would go 5 and only save 1 for the visuals.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm probably on that same boat. Maybe if I can be convinced that the majority of Warcraft fans absolutely dig it, then maybe I might shave 1 beer off of that number just because that means that there's a there's a cult following that the film has. That's
okay.
But no, I'm gonna go 5.
I could safely give it a 4. Again, the first half hour, 45 minutes entertained me, and I appreciated the attempt at getting the lore right. And again, like we said, with the level of acclaim for the movie from Underground, from Warcraft gaming fans. It seems like they did at least something to do right by those fans, so I can respect that.
Either way, I'm very interested to see what Duncan Jones has next, because at the very least, it was not a movie that was made incompetently. It feels just like a failure. A failure of that kind is hard to prevent if you're just one person.
He does have something else coming down the pipeline. I can't remember what it is, but it sounds like it's a return to what he likes to do. It's called Mute, and interesting. According to the IMDb synopsis, it says a mute bartender goes up against his city's gangsters in an effort to find out what happened to his missing partner.
Now that's interesting.
Yeah, that could be fun.
And writing a script around a mute character is interesting because that requires you to be creative in how you present the narrative and how he interacts.
Well, it's got Alexander Skarsgård and Paul Rudd so far. So
I was gonna say, when you said Paul Rudd, I was like, do you think they're gonna cast Ryan Reynolds as the lead, as the mute?
Yeah, we're all thinking the Deadpool thing. Yeah.
Yeah, got another movie in which he can't talk.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even thinking of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I trust him.
So, Conjuring 2, on the other hand. Now, this movie is... I'll go ahead and just give my quick synopsis moving into Conjuring 2. I will admit, first of all, I'm not familiar with the original film. I am not, in general, a fan of spectral horror. The whole thing of ghosts, to me, is really just an excuse to have a lot of jump scares. And so I went into this with a degree of trepidation. And I will say this much about Conjuring 2. James Wan is clearly a very, very visual and very talented director, a very good director of people. And this movie had all the resources it needed to be a really good movie. It had a solid cast. It had, clearly a very good budget. And an intriguing concept, if not necessarily my cup of tea. It at least, caught my interest when I heard the basic breakdown of it. What it lacks, though, is in the execution of the ghost story that it has within it. Where that lacks is in the fact that you have a very well-directed film, a very well-acted film, with a main ghost that is basically just, the boogeyman. Ooh, I'm going to jump on scare you a little bit. Ooh, I've got scary face. Get out of my house. Mm-hmm. And
there was the part where he first appears and he says, "Get out of my house." I fucking laughed like so hard at that.
I did too. I did not find any of the scares in this movie scary. I thought it was unless this movie is intentionally meant to be a comedy, I didn't. And that's the thing. It wouldn't work as a comedy because the human element of the characters was played very seriously and well. I actually think Patrick Wilson and Mega Farmiga. I almost said Mega Okay. Vera Farmiga are a great couple in the film, and actually the scenes dealing with their romance between them, even at they've been married and they're still romantic with each other. I liked that.
I loved him. She was okay. I want to see Patrick Wilson star in something awesome so that my favorite movie with him is no longer Lakeview Terrace.
That's probably...
I like the part with Marilyn Manson as the nun.
Yeah, I was about to say exactly that same thing. And by the way, this movie steals wholesale from the scare, like the visuals of the scares steals wholesale from Babadook, minus the fact that Babadook never resorted to jump scare elements.
Yeah, but didn't the Babadook come after The Conjuring 1 and Insidious?
Well, I never saw Conjuring 1, so I guess I can't speak to how that movie broke down, and I haven't seen Insidious either, so I can't speak to that.
So yeah, I would say that no one's borrowing from anyone. That is just the That is the current flavor of this type of horror movie.
Okay, so did those movies also feature a weird, weird like long-limbed, slender-manish kind of character who stretches all over the place, like the Crooked Man in this film?
Crooked Man. I was going to call him Creeping Man, and I was like, that sounds like a pedophile.
No,
Because
neither one had a crooked man, but I
Because
didn't.
the Crooked Man was the Babadook. Just the Babadook had this cool sketch design behind him that was really awesome.
Yeah, but isn't the Crooked Man like way older than just this movie? Don't think for a second that was made up for this movie.
It's a riff on the Slender Man theme. I don't think the Crooked Man is anything as far. I mean, let me Google it. The Crooked Man.
No, I've got it. No, Crooked Man's kind of an old. It's an English nursery rhyme.
Yeah, well, okay, the song.
So, looks like visually he kind of resembles Slender Man or the Babadook, but of course, with this being such an old story, there have been many, many iterations of the characters. So I don't think there was any like, hey, we like that one movie, let's make it similar. I think it's just kind of that's just one of the styles.
I haven't seen Babadook, so I'm not here to point that finger. The thing that this movie did that kept my attention the most is when it would be sort of quasi-stylistic. I liked the use of pop songs from the 70s, like The Clash, and I know they used the Bee Gees later. What's theirs? They did another one, though. It doesn't matter.
They pulled the same problem, oh god, that pissed me the fuck off when I saw it in the James Bond movie.
London Calling.
London Calling to establish the fact that you're in London when the visuals already convey as much.
Yeah, that was. I haven't seen Spectre, so I don't know how it's executed there, but I liked that.
It wasn't Inspector. It was a different Bond movie.
Die Another Day.
Die Another Day. I don't know why the name was evading me.
Okay. They should have done that, Inspector.
No.
So first of all, I want to say I absolutely loved this movie. I thought it was terrific. And that part of that comes with the knowledge that this and Conjuring 1 are styled like those old horror movies.
Which ones? Like the what are you talking about here?
They just have a feel of an older school horror movie, like just like kind
this
of like
one didn't.
The humor and that kind with the way the scares are set up and stuff.
This felt very modern to me.
In terms of like some of the campiness.
The filmmaking approach, I would say, but not the effects. The effects take me out of that feeling like a throwback because the ghostly apparitions, the makeup, and the way things are lit in the scare elements feels incredibly modern. But you're right in that the film takes its time establishing its characters, and it builds up to it doesn't rush into things very often.
Yeah. And I actually did think the movie was quite frightening in many parts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't like scream or jump all that much, but it definitely like when Bill, you laughed the first time the old guy appeared and said "my house." The line is funny, but when the camera switches over to his face is right behind her shoulder, that got under my skin. It got my adrenaline going.
I guess the problem I have with jump scares is I'm so trained to expect them, and this movie didn't even pull any fake scares. When movies use jump scares well, they fool you into a sense of safety by occasionally throwing something at you that doesn't happen, like a fake.
Listen. Boy Next Door won all the fake scares for 2016.
Oh, the cat.
No, the old guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the old guy. Right. Actually, that's the same guy who's in Conjuring 2. My house.
What if it was though?
I think it should be.
Well, for the sake of the mythology, we already have
an old man actor. We
already have Warcraft and Troll 2 in the same universe. Why not have The Conjuring 2 and The Boy Next Door in the same universe? Why the fuck not?
Yeah, absolutely, and he's a recurring soul who torments those. And Here we
This
go.
is some next level cinematic universe building.
So in The Conjuring, remember how in Conjuring 2, the old man wasn't actually the bad guy because it was that nun thing that was inhabiting his soul? What if the soul of the old man, after being freed in the world of The Conjuring, went mad and started becoming a tormentor himself? And so years later, he finds this kid, and he inhabits the soul of this kid, who turns into the kid from The Boy Next Door, who's evil, and he's like taken over his mind and turned him into the killer.
Oh
So
my God.
you're close, but there's one thing that you missed.
Okay.
The nun, the name of the nun, it should be Marilyn Manson. Would it be Marinun Manson?
You know, my dad was a nun. You know, on his job description, he wrote nun.
The only meat a priest could eat on Friday was none.
No, I loved it. I thought it was really good. It just like you said, the way the slow burn like was extremely effective, and the fact that none of the jump scares were cheap. But yeah, like you, I am very well trained by horror movies on jump scares, and none of the jump scares really got me. I think maybe one of them did.
There's one where you can totally sense it's coming. It's in the bedroom. It's before they like move out. I can't remember what exactly the context was, but I'm just sitting there like waiting, like, all right, give me the jump scare because it's coming. There's no denying it.
And that's why I prefer horror films that don't require jump scares, that just create an overwhelming sense of dread. That, like, I recently watched Green Room. Green Room has that feeling. It's not a jump scare horror film. It's a horror film where you're feeling for these characters and you're realizing, how are they going to get out of this? This is getting fucked up, and just your heart starts beating because you want to see them make it out, and you know that the chances of them making it out, I mean, this is getting slimmer and slimmer by the moment. It's the angst that causes. That is the kind of pulse pounding. Yeah, it's that feeling that really gets to me in a film. I love the Omen. The original Omen is great for that because it doesn't throw a bunch of scares at you left and right, but your main character is in such dire straits and you're feeling for his situation, and it's such a hopeless situation because when your character is this kid who's capable of controlling the minds of anyone around him. And when I say, I mean total control, and getting them to turn anyone into killers, it's basically a lose-lose scenario.
And honestly, this I think probably one of the scariest scenes in this movie for me, the one that really just I had this creeping sense of dread and I could feel it under my skin, is very, very early in the movie when the girl is apparently having that bad dream and talking to somebody in the corner, and the sister is trying to figure out what she's looking at. Like, and the first Conjuring pulled the same trick. Is just the one of the young girl characters just staring into a corner with just utter terror, and I think what made it partly so effective is the strength of the actors they chose to play the kids. Like, where do they get these kids? Like, it's fucking fantastic how well they do that.
Here's a thought for you. What if they made this? If this movie was the same thing, but they cut out almost every actual representation of the poltergeist and instead hit him almost completely, so that you would see the terror in the girl's face, and she would get frightened at things, and you wouldn't see why. And maybe the dread that would build as, what is this that's tormenting her? You can see things moving. You can see things violently being thrown at her, but you don't see the thing. Almost a Jaws approach.
I could absolutely see James Wan wanting to make that kind of movie, and the studio saying you can't make a movie that inaccessible to the mainstream audience.
You need Marilyn Monster, of course.
Yeah.
That's I agree with you. I mean, a $40 million movie is not going to get that creative. Sad.
But I would totally watch a cut of that, and like I would even be I would love if James Wan would just do that, just edit the apparition out of his movie. Because
And maybe not even necessarily every apparition, but the most overt ones. Like, I don't need to see a face, but like the outline of a character in the background. That's creepy.
yeah, definitely. And as far some of the jump scares too, like it's kind of fun knowing they're going to come. It's like when Patrick Wilson is looking at the crooked man spinning thing and the image disappears. Like, and the movie's already trained you to expect something bad to happen when the image disappears, and then it's like of course, as soon as he looks up, it's going to be right there. And I think part of what made the movie so entertaining for me is that I know it's coming, so it's like, oh my god, he's gonna fucking do it. And that's why modern horror movies are such garbage, because they just jump out at you. Like, sometimes it's going to happen, but they're never earned. They're never fun. There's no foreshadowing or no reason for them to exist. Things jump out at you in PG-13 modern horror films because that's what modern horror films do.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that's possibly why I tend more towards like the dread-based horror films, or body horror also really gets me, like just gross horror, because there's something to that that's so real, that's visually stimulating to me, and it's in one case it's that you see everything, and in the other case it's that you see nothing, and there's the middle part that these films fill doesn't quite appeal to my personal tastes, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I generally don't like this kind of movie either. I think it's just the visual style to the movie is just beautiful.
I will agree. I was really impressed with the tracking shots, particularly early in the movie. I think it got a little lazy later in the film by comparison, because that scene when the horrors are starting, and the Warrens haven't yet come to that house, and you see like the camera duck through like it goes through the duct just above a door, and then it comes down in, and then comes through a door, follows throughout the house. That was creative. That was that was almost Sam Raimi using in Evil Dead, using a camera tied to a pole and running around the forest.
I would watch any length featurette on this movie because I would love to know how he pulled off some of those shots. I think the one where I was really like, how did he do that? Is when I can't remember. I keep forgetting her name. Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Janet.
She's sleeping. It zooms in on her face, and without cutting, zooms back out, and she's in the living room.
Well, yeah. I'm sure there's some sleight of hand. Dare I say, some magic involved in those callback in those
Hey-o!
scenes. And maybe even hidden cuts that are
Yeah, I'm sure if there was maybe if I watched it again very closely, you'd see maybe a shimmer on her face where they cut it and just CGI'd the cut and edit or whatever. But I think just the level of craftsmanship, and here I actually saw a very short behind the scenes video. The whole the part where she's stuck on the ceiling, they just built an upside down version of that room and she laid on the floor. So just as well as James Wan's devotion to practical effects, there's very little CGI in this movie from what I know.
Right.
Because James Wan just does not do CGI. He doesn't like it.
The Crooked Man, that was... I would love to see how they did that practically, because if that wasn't CG, it looked incredibly computer to me.
It did look very computer. Wait, you said it looked incredibly computer, or looked incredible as a computer creation?
Incredibly computer.
Okay, and I thought you were going to say that, and I actually have a theory on that. Maybe. I don't know how much water it holds, but at least for the first appearance of him, I think that the fact that it looks pretty CG, for me at least, tricked me into thinking that the kid was just having a bad dream. Because it seemed kind of out of place, like, oh, he's just having a nightmare or whatever. And then he's not. So I think that was a bait and switch, at least for me as a viewer, that the movie tricked me into thinking that he was just having a nightmare, and then turned out to actually be reality.
All right, I'll buy that. I mean, I can see that as a trick that could. I won't argue that point. I'll say that much. What I will say is the movie is very competently made, and I don't hold it against people for liking this movie. It's not my cup of tea, and I have a problem with the ultimately the way the haunting is set up is far from spooky to me.
Sure, and if you didn't like this, you probably will not really like Insidious or The Conjuring, because James Wan has a very he has a bag of tricks that he dives into fairly often. So the first Insidious had a monster appearing behind somebody. It had a little kid running around.
Right.
It had a lot of the same tricks. The Conjuring 1 did a few things differently. You may enjoy The Conjuring 1. At the same time, Insidious is streaming for free on Crackle. So if you find yourself with some free time and are curious at some more competently made James Wan horror films, then you could see it at very low risk to yourself on Crackle. That was not a Crackle plug. Nobody paid me for it. I actually just happened upon it last night, and it was on there. And I rewatched
But we
it.
do have some commercials we're going to interrupt this with every 7 minutes just to make sure you know to use Crackle.
Yeah, it's a free movie.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, that's what Crackle is. If Crackle could figure a way to put those commercials somewhere that wasn't awkward, I'd watch it more often. But it almost always feels really out of place when they interrupt.
Actually, you know what? As far as Insidious, it seemed pretty skillfully cut up into commercial breaks, so they might be getting better at it. But I don't know. I've only used Crackle twice, once for Joe Dirt 2 and once for Insidious. So.
Yeah, I've used it twice. Once for Joe Dirt 2 and once to watch some Three Stooges because they actually have the Three Stooges catalog, and that failed miserably.
Yeah, Crackle has some. Crackle has the TV show Powers, which is now streaming if you're a PlayStation Plus member. They have season 2, but they don't have season 1. I don't get it, but whatever. I don't know if there's really much else to say about The Conjuring 2, unless that I was really drawn into it. I expected to really enjoy it, and I was definitely. I mean, I would even say that I came out of it maybe liking it a little bit more than I expected to.
Okay. Fair
it's kind
enough.
of funny though when you see some reviews. Like there was one very negative review. It's like, well, with all the like saccharine music that plays, this might as well be a Lifetime movie. It's like
Lifetime couldn't afford the music they put in this.
Well, no, I'm talking about like the score that plays when Ed and Lorraine are talking to each other and having their tender moments.
Oh.
Like, come on, man, don't be an asshole. That was like 7 minutes out of the entire fucking 2-hour movie. But it's funny, I was thinking about that, like how sometimes reviewers that are hell-bent on giving a bad review, but their publication only gives them 3 paragraphs, they just go after one thing and they just grab onto it and don't let go.
Right. Well, and that's one thing we like here at Movie Boozers, that you're actually required to come up with individual, multiple reasons why you didn't like a movie.
Yeah.
And in that vein, if I had to give a beer rating to Conjuring 2, I think I would wind up giving it probably... I think I would probably wind up giving it 3 beers.
Okay.
It's not my cup of tea, but the only real complaints I can have about it is the way the effects are set up for the creatures is not particularly frightening, and then the preponderance of jump scares. And you know what? I may go to 4 beers if I was feeling like a dick for that last line that the actress who plays Janet gets in the movie.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the worst. I mean, she's great through the whole rest of the movie, but that was one of the worst line readings I've heard in a major movie recently. She's just like, this says something about having one hero, and I have 2.
Yeah. She's like, I'm so lucky. You said that one person would change everything. I have 2.
The way she says it felt so fake.
This movie has a mild problem with expository dialogue, like very, very mild. But I think I almost laughed when it basically, at the end, you're like, oh, the demon can only be defeated if you can use his name against it. And which,
by the way, where the fuck did?
That's a trope. That's a trope of movies because demons. I mean, that's a trope in general. Like that's just the way demons work in folklore, is that they thrive on your fear and you not knowing what's happening to you. But once you can identify the demon and identify who it is, and that's when you can use it against it because you know who it is and you can send it away.
Their survival in this movie depends on the fact that this demon was dumb enough to tell her what his name was.
I don't know if it consciously said that. She just, but anyway, like
No,
all of that.
the dialogue in the movie, she says, "He told me his name."
Yeah, but that's because she's like a fucking psychic or whatever. I don't know. I don't care. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how her line reading is, "He told me his name, and I wrote it down." It's like, come on, did you really have to fucking throw that? Like, why couldn't she have just be like, "She did tell me his name," and then she runs to the car, and the girl's like, "What are you doing, Miss Lorraine?" And then she's like, then as she's finding the Bible, it's like, "My Bible, I wrote his name in it," or something like that. Not just, "I wrote his name down."
You wouldn't even have to say that. Just have her look at the pages and spell out the words, and be like, boom.
Yeah, or anything like that. Just not just lay it out like I wrote it down. That was really stuck out for me. But despite that, that did not make this movie any less than a toast for me.
And yeah, I mean, having some songs on the soundtrack from like the Hollies was, I didn't mind that. It was London Calling was a bit on the nose, but the Hollies I liked for Bus Stop. Can't Help Falling in Love, of course. That was a good character moment. I liked that.
And I thought of something too while I was watching the movie is, and I want to talk about one more thing before we go on after I say this. I was watching the movie. I was like, you know what? I know that someone's going to jump out of the water and grab her. So I still want to get into filmmaking at some point. And one thing that I would do, if I was a director in a perfect world with total control over my budget, I would spend an extra $500,000 to $1 million on a trailer that had different cuts and different jump scares than the movie actually had.
Yes.
Does that make sense? So, like, for example, the scene with the nun in the mirror, awesome scene, but kind of spoiled by the trailer. So if I was, if in this perfect world, if I had control over the trailer in this kind of movie with this kind of scene, I would have like an additional pan to the left and pan to the right. So anybody who's seen the trailer and is watching the movie expects it to happen on the third pan, but it happens on the second, so the scare is still genuine.
And that's where I was coming with earlier, where I was saying films with jump scares that work better are ones that will fool you every once in a while. This one did not throw you any fake scares, and that's I think that was a disservice. They should have thrown in something to fool you, to fake you out, just a couple times, just to throw you off.
You mean like fake jump scares?
Yeah, something quick happens that isn't an actual scare. It turns out to be something innocuous.
Oh, I fucking hate those.
When they're done right and brought in, a perfect example is in Alien, when Harry Dean Stanton's walking around in the weird, rainy. Why would a spaceship have rain? But weird, rainy, dank holding area, and
well, the rain is not to go off on a tangent, but that was explored in Sunshine, where they have a room that has an Earth ecosystem simulation to keep them from going crazy stuck on this spaceship.
Right, but in this case, it was like a greasy sewer in space.
Oh, okay. It's been a while since I've seen Alien, so.
Yeah, there's even a scene where you see a bunch of chains hanging down for no good reason, and Harry Dean Stanton walks about it. He takes off his hat and lets the rain fall on him. It's like, dude, you don't know where that shit has been. But there's the cat jumps at him, and it's a jump scare, and it's really effective because you were expecting to see the alien then, and you didn't. And then
go ahead.
But then they throw the alien at you when you are off guard, when you think, okay, so now they're going to cut away to something else. But they hit you perfectly. That is how a good jump scare is one that you're not expecting. And when you're trained to expect any time it's dark, something to jump out at you, then you're not going to be scared. You're just going to be like, so that happened.
Yeah, and you know what? I was actually going to use the cat as an example of a bad jump scare, like, looking around and it hears noise and then ran with that cat. It's like, oh, it's the cat, whatever.
Well, it was done well in Alien, but it's been done a million times since then. I'm not saying
just like
cat scare. And in fact, sometimes they do really horrible ones where it's obvious someone off screen threw a cat at someone. Those
Yeah.
are hilarious. Look for a shitty movie that does that, because it'll be so obvious that some assistant off stage is just like, cat.
I would love to see somebody make that's the next supercut I want to see is just obviously fake things in movies. So like the fake dummy falling down a cliff or fake cat being thrown at somebody off screen. But one example of I think so The Conjuring 2 doesn't give you fake jump scares, but one thing that I liked is that it sets you up for a jump scare that might not be coming. So, for example, in the scene where the kid has eaten too many biscuits, and he's going downstairs to get a drink of water, and he looks out and he sees the swinging a little bit, and you get this fantastic shot of him on the right half of the screen in the window drinking his water, and the left half of the screen is the other window of the house blank. I was waiting for something to pop up in that window. Not even pop up, just appear, something also looking out. And so the level of tension I felt just waiting for something to appear in that window, I think is what James Wan does so well, is just building the tension because you know something horrible is about to happen, but you don't know when it's going to happen.
Something is happening here and you don't know what it is.
His timing is so good with scares. Like it's really insane how well. I mean, we talked about the editing in Warcraft, how bad it is. The editing in James Wan's movie is nearly perfect.
I personally thought you could have shaved a little bit off the first 20 to 40 minutes and tightened that up. Really just get the Warrens to the house.
I actually kind of appreciated that they didn't make it a movie about the Warrens. Like, they could have easily made this, like, here's the Warrens going on another adventure. But no, it was about the family, and the Warrens are secondary characters that come into their lives.
And that's fine. Like, that's what. Like, but this isn't my kind of movie. My kind of movie would be one that focuses more on them, and because like Patrick Wilson was fantastic in this.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, and I really the characters are not the problem in this movie, and I agree with Bill to an extent in that I think maybe it drags its feet a little bit in getting down to brass tacks. I did like that it lingered. But maybe it was because the payoff wasn't quite enough for me personally to make that earned. Because when you have a horror movie that builds up to, I mean, I mentioned Babadook. Babadook is a movie with a ton of build-up, and it pays its build-up off in such a wonderful way that the time it takes getting there is earned every minute of it. And that includes a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with the horror. It's more like character moments that are there, creating that atmosphere. And so maybe that, I guess, if you find yourself satisfied with ultimately how the horror elements work in the film, then the build-up will be worthy for you. But for others, maybe it'll feel a little bit too slow in pace. Is that making sense?
Yeah, no. I just want to talk about the scene that I want to talk about that really got to me. That I love this scene, and somebody even said it again on the discussion on Reddit. Said that this scene might go down as one of the like classics of horror cinema. Is the painting scene, which is in the study.
Oh, no, not really.
You what?
I found that kind of comical, honestly.
The part where like the shadow goes behind it and jumps out, that was kind of campy. But I'm talking about when she's looking at the painting and the light turns off, and she turns back around and she sees the painting, and the painting is shaded just right so that it could just as easily be the nun herself.
And I thought that's what they were going for. I thought they were going to have like her in CG jump out of the painting. I'm glad they didn't do that. It wasn't.
Again, that's what makes James Wan's movies so great for me. His horror movies is that you expect a certain type of jump scare, and he may or may not give that to you. And I think that's what really the tension.
You expect a shitty jump scare, and instead he gives you a mildly lazy one instead.
No, not even that. It's I wouldn't even consider the leaping out of the painting a jump scare. It wasn't a jump scare, but the fingers wrapped around it and then it came out of the wall. That's not a jump scare.
By the way, why would you approach the fucking painting when you saw a fucking ghostly shadow like silhouette match it up? Isn't that basically saying, just screaming, "Stay the fuck away from this! Must go faster! Get out!"
Well, I could go into how I would feel like this is her. I mean, she has a connection to the spiritual world. She wants to figure out what's going on, know more about this nun. She knows the nun might be dangerous, but what she does know is that the nun holds the key to what might end in her husband's death. So she wants to know what she's all about and figure out how she can save her husband.
By the way,
we
how
could just go with the
convenient was
fact
that tree that was like it splintered just perfectly to be a spear?
Yeah, sure, but that, I mean, could also be the demon. But I did laugh at that because it's like, every 5 seconds, the movie reminds us of, oh, there's a tree that's gonna kill him. Like, zoom in on that, zoom in from the top, zoom in from the bottom. It's like, oh, it's fucking sharp, guys, look out.
And it wasn't that tall of a splinter, so technically, while that whole dangling thing was happening, someone could have run up to where that tree was splintering, and maybe someone who has an axe that they established was in the movie, and chopped the splinter off. So maybe she get hurt a little bit if she fell, but not impaled.
So the guy with the axe was like 2 steps behind everybody else in the movie all the fucking time.
And
like,
how fucking terrible was he with the axe? It took him forever to make any. That
yeah.
must be the hardest wood door like ever built.
Yeah, it's demon wood.
Demon. Oh, there you go. The house is built out.
Further with the demon wood analogy by establishing the splintered tree as a demon wood of the phallic variety.
Oh God! So that would be like Amityville, where it's like the house itself is evil.
Now that we're on the subject of horror movies, like every horror movie in the '70s was fucking about sexual tension and phallic weapons penetrating bodies. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, look,
stabbings and all that shit. That's all. This was the crux of my horror film courses in college. Is like the knife is a penis and it goes inside people.
One of my favorite scenes is in Lucille Fulci's City of the Living Dead. Not a particularly good movie, but it's got great scenes in it. For instance, a scene where a girl's buried alive in a coffin, and a guy's digging desperately with a pickaxe to try to get at her, to get her out before she dies, and he slams the pickaxe into the coffin, and you see as it comes within an inch of her skull, like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Great tense scene. And that scene, speaking of phallic kills, also that movie features a person having a giant power drill go right through his eyeball.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Literally skull fucking.
So I don't really know what else needs to be said about The Conjuring 2.
I think we covered it. Except, just really quickly, Hawk, give us your beer rating.
I give it a toast. Absolutely.
Okay. And Bill Leon? We cannot hear Bill Leon at the moment.
Yeah.
So, Bill, he's holding up 3 fingers. So we'll go 3 beers.
Okay.
All right, so we're on that page. Now, with that, there really isn't that many there aren't that many other topics to discuss tonight. So what I'll close the episode is by setting up next week. We have Finding Dory, which is getting fairly decent reviews so far, although they're mostly agreeing that it's not quite on par with the original. So,
yeah, I could have told you that.
Of course. But we'll see how that goes. I'm intrigued by it, and I love a Pixar movie. Even the absolute worst Pixar movie, Cars 2, it's better than a ton of animated films out there, and that's not good.
I was listening to Dan Harmon's podcast, Harmontown, which you directed me to.
Oh, yes.
And he mentioned Pixar movies, because apparently Dan Harmon executive produced Anomalisa.
Yes, he did. And he has a grudge against Pixar.
Oh, yeah, he's mad. You've probably heard this, Kim. I don't know if anybody else has. This, again, Amazon Echo, if you ask it to play an episode of a podcast, sometimes it doesn't pick out the latest one. It will tell you it's doing the latest one, but especially with Harmontown, it just grabs a random one. So this actually came out on the same week as the Golden Globes.
Oh yeah, I heard this one. That's a good one.
He's like, so fuck Pixar. And he's like talking about Anomalisa. He's like, I executive produced the fuck out of that movie, and it lost the movie about the M&Ms in your head. It's pretty funny.
Oh yeah. It's
if we made a movie about the futility of monogamy in a hotel room, just give me a fucking Golden Globe.
You know what it reminds me of is when the South Park guys on the commentary track for that South Park for when they're talking about South Park the movie losing Best Song at the Oscars to Phil Collins.
Yeah.
And they don't give a fuck. They just straight up say, I would have been happy losing that Oscar to anyone, but not Phil Collins. Right. They go off on a tirade, and it's pretty vicious. And you're like, wow, sour grapes much? Whatever happened to it's wonderful to be recognized. The nomination is more important than the win, they say.
I kind of understand Harmon's frustration, though.
I personally liked Inside Out more than Anomalisa.
I mean, Inside Out was fine. I don't really get everything that people loved about it.
I found Anomalisa to have the same problem that I have with a bunch of Charlie Kaufman films. There's a level of introspection to it that feels more artificial than anything. I can't get into some of his more.
I would definitely agree that I don't want to go as far as saying Anomalisa works better as a concept than it does as a full-length film, but it kind of does.
No.
I don't know. Like, Anomalisa is a great movie. I
love that movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it should have won Best Picture.
I can't really place Anomalisa like what I want to think about it. It's just like, I don't know. Did you say artificial, Ken?
Artificial. Well, of course, Anomalisa had some elements to it that were intentionally artificial. So that's I won't. I'm not criticizing that, but I'll say it feels like there's a weird thing where he sometimes pulls in humor for levity that doesn't quite mesh with what is being. The thing that pissed me off in Anomalisa is I think the whole element of him like picking up the weird like Japanese sex doll thing for his thinking that his daughter would appreciate that.
Son.
Yeah, it felt so out of place for the movie. It was like no human being is that disconnected from the world. And I know his character is supposed to be disconnected, but he is like that's like mental handicap levels of disconnection from reality.
Isn't there still cum in it when the kid's like messing with it?
Apparently, yeah. That's a completely different kind of humor that than the rest of the film carries, and it was things like that. There were a lot of little moments like that kind of threw me out. Now, don't get me wrong. I thought it was a very good movie. I would even say a great animated film, but Inside Out worked better for me overall. That's I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. So, there was one movie I wanted to briefly discuss because I actually will not be back to see you guys for at least another 2 weeks. Because after this week, I will be in between houses. So, I just got a screener. Well, last week I got a screener for Therapy for a Vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the sequel to Interview?
No. It is an Austrian romantic farce. It's really, really entertaining. So I think it comes out later this year, and I definitely would recommend checking it out. It's about a count who is going to see Sigmund Freud for therapy, and the first running joke of this movie is that the vampire is saying, and it's important that the Sigmund Freud has no idea that the count is a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
So the count says things like, I've grown tired of my marriage. It's been going on too long because it's been going for 500 years. He's like, I'm not good at self-reflection because, of course, vampires don't see their reflection when they look in the mirror. And basically, the Count is very fond of the woman who originally turned him thousands of years ago. We also have the female lead, her boyfriend, who's a painter, and then the Count's wife. The Count's wife is upset because she is very vain and cannot see herself in a mirror, so she wants to be able to see herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then the girl's boyfriend keeps painting her a brunette with blonde hair and a dress, which she hates because she's a brunette and she hates dresses. So he's painting her with like her own vision of what he would like her to be. So when the Count sees this painting, it looks exactly like the girl that changed him years ago. So he wants to try to seduce the girl, while the Count's wife wants to seduce the painter who can paint her effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So it turns into this weird romantic quadrangle,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just very silly, and I got a huge kick out of it.
All right. Well, I will look into that. I haven't heard of it, but it sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it's a couple of years old, but it's only now coming to the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who the distributor is, but it's got little things like the Count floating in the air as he's getting therapy, and Freud just not really noticing because he's so invested in his notes, and just little weird things like that. It doesn't ever go into like full-on slapstick farce, but there are elements of slapstick, there are elements of farce, and it just ends up being kind of a really fun little romantic comedy type thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Bill Leon, do you have any movie suggestions or of anything you've seen outside of the new flicks?
Nope, nothing.
All right, I'll throw one out there because I have last week in my attempt to do movie watchings, I was able to wrangle down some movie recommendations from Jay from Red Letter Media, and most of the movies he recommended were films I'd already seen before. But there was one movie he recommended that I watched, which I guarantee you, Bill Leon, you may not like this. This movie is going to be too slow for you. But, Hawk, you might like how just completely weird this is. Did you ever see Under the Skin?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Hawk has discussed this before.
I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, okay. I don't remember that coming up, but that's fine. Yeah, so I watched Under the Skin last week, and
I like Drive. That's slow pace. Is it like a similar?
No.
I would say Under the Skin is
not at all.
It's like if David Lynch made a movie about aliens, that's what you might come up with. It deals with female sex politics in kind of a reverse, in that the main character is a female who preys upon men, but that's only a very small element of a larger, weird, fucked up narrative that there's very little spoken dialogue in the movie, long moments of just sound, and the sound design is very Lynch in that it's very not electronic, but very industrial, and there's a lot of machinery sounding noises, and it's it's hard to describe.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know what's funny is it's from the director of what's his name? It's the guy that I can't remember if he directed and wrote it or just wrote it, but he made that movie from a few years ago, Sexy Beast.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a great movie.
Right. Yeah, it's the same director, and it's a completely different movie from Sexy Beast.
Right? Like Sexy Beast is like a gangster drama, black comedy, and this is a fucking alien, naked Scarlett Johansson, like existential fucking. I don't.
Let me go into the premise here a little bit for you, Bill Leon. This is what happens. So Scarlett Johansson it shows up naked, being kind of placed on the side of the road, and she goes to a shopping center, gets some clothes, and from that point, she starts like wandering rural Scotland, picking up men on the street or in clubs or places, and she takes them to her house. And in her house is this dark black room where she undresses in front of them and kind of lures them towards her. to the point where she's completely naked, and the men just keep following. And then finally, the men get to this point where they're like walking in this weird black liquid, like abyss, and they don't seem to even notice that they're walking into it. And by the time they notice anything, they're in it, and she walks away and goes back looking for more men. And you get the feeling that that abyss is some sort of weird digestion tank that's like sucking men dry.
Well, they show it too. They show that getting sucked out of his skin.
Right. They don't explain what it does, really, but it's the insinuation is that somehow she's either surviving on that or something like that. But the one thing I will say is I'm surprised that this movie didn't get more press just on the mere fact that you literally see everything of Scarlett Johansson in this movie.
Yeah.
And she's an actress who doesn't show herself like all that naked very often. And this movie is like downright pornographic in what you see, which is to say that the thing is it's done very artfully and tasteful. So I'm not going to say that it was exploitive, which is probably why she chose to do it. But
one thing that I really liked about this movie is that at one point one of the men that she comes across and takes home is a man with neurofibromatosis, I think is what it's called.
Right. It's basically the same thing the Elephant Man had.
Yes, I didn't want to call it the Elephant Man disease, but that's what it is.
Right.
This actor actually has this in real life, and it's been a problem for him all his life. He's been teased for it. He can't get a girlfriend for it. And when he was acting with Scarlett Johansson in this movie, first of all, I read this interview with him. He's like, he was terrified of getting naked in front of Scarlett Johansson.
Right.
But she was incredibly supportive of him, and the two of them had a lot of talks about just self-esteem and appearance and that kind of thing, because Scarlett Johansson is also very self-conscious about her body and her appearance.
Right.
And now they're actually, from what I understand, pretty good friends. So I think that's pretty cool, like, that this movie actually did something for this guy. And of course, this actually does something for, it ends up well for the characters as well in the movie. She ends up not killing him.
Well, you say that, Hawk, but what you're leaving out is the we're getting into spoilers here. The scene after she turns him loose, where the biker guy, who's also one of whoever Scarlett Johansson is, picks him up and throws him into a trunk, and you never see him again.
Yeah, it sucks for him, but at least he didn't get fucked to death. But it's I just thought that was kind of cool. Like, I just want to throw that out there. That I think that's neat that little thing could have a big
it's a changing point. It's you watch as this alien creature who's preying upon men like as a hunter slowly gains a conscience.
Yeah, that too. And then it's a really good movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. But anyway, so with that said, that's all we have for this week's virtual pubcast, and we'll see you next week with Finding Dory.